Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a Kickstarter preview. This one is for Reavers of Midgard. It is a worker placement game that takes place in the same universe as one of our favorite games, Champions of Midgard, which was kickstarted about 2 years ago.
Yeah, Champions of Midgard started out with a lot of things going on, and then they added to it with expansions. This one has a lot going on from the very beginning. It's a very diverse worker placement game and a point salad, to say the least.
Don't let that fool you, though. However, there's only 6 worker placement spots, and you only have 1 worker the entire game in a 3 and up player game. So you're simply going to be placing one of your workers on one of the 6 available spots that's not already taken, taking that action, and then everyone else at the table gets to also take that action, but to lesser degrees as it goes around clockwise around the table. It's a really unique aspect of the game.
Yeah, we've seen that in some other games like San Juan and some past games, but in this game, it's so tight that when you're playing and you just have that one piece, you put it down, you have to really give that a lot of thought where you want to go, because a lot of these spaces will give you a lot if you're the one who leads or goes there, but you're always going to get something if you want or if you can fulfill the spot.
We'll talk about most of the components as we talk about the different places on the board. Just going to walk through each of the different locations. Also, please note that this is a prototype of the game. A lot of the things aren't complete, and the game isn't completely done at this point either. All right, let's talk about the very first thing. Each player is going to have a player board in front of them. This player board is going to show you 10 places where you can hold dice through the course of the game. That's all the dice that you can hold. However, you have a place for 4 different artifacts. These are powerful boons that you can use through the course of the game by placing one of your dice on one of these different locations when someone goes to a very specific location to be able to do something that's just available to you. They're also worth victory points at the end of the game. Also, you have a place for 1 leader. This leader can be rotated through the course of the game, and depending upon the leader, they're going to give you a one-time benefit if you place it in this leader position. Also, the Reavers can be placed across the bottom. These are going to give you ongoing effects, all kinds of different abilities when anybody takes one of the 4 different actions across the bottom. Plus, it's going to show you the dice distribution. There's 3 different types of main dice. They're going to represent different types of clans, and they're going to have different types of facings on them that are all going to be able to do something depending upon the location that you go to.
Yeah, and just like Champions, you also have, of course, food. Food's going to power a lot of the actions that you take throughout this game. You're going to get favor tokens. These are going to allow you to re-roll dice, which leads me to the next dice, the battle dice. These are going to be used in a number of different places if you want to. There's usually an option to not use them and go a different route, but you can always use battle dice in a lot of these cases by trading in some of the other icons to collect those dice and then roll them up.
To start the game, you're going to pick a first player. That player is going to get 4 food, and each person clockwise on the table is going to get 1 more food than the previous person. Each player is also going to take 3 of the individual colored dice. They're going to randomly roll them. Whatever turns up. You're going to play those on your player board. Then it's the first player's turn action. They're going to take their longship, and they're going to place it onto one of the 6 different locations on the board. When you look at the board, you're going to see each of these different circles. These are the locations that you're deciding to go to. Each of these locations is going to have some kind of payment that you have to be able to do in order to take that action. Some of them don't. You just simply go there and you get something. And I'm going to talk about the very first one. This is called the Reavers. This is the unique one. You're going to notice cards that are kind of splayed like this. Starting with the first player, they're going to take one of these sets. You're going to take these 2 cards in any combination that you wish, and you're going to look at them. The first thing that you get to do with these Reaver cards is on the left-hand side of each of these cards, they're going to show you a die. You're going to pick those dice up, roll them, and put them on your player board. That automatically happens. The second thing that can happen is you have to make a choice. What do you want to do with these cards? There's 3 options that you can do. Number 1 is you can expend the leader, take the dice on the right-hand side, pull them from the supply, and then put them on your player board. The difference here is you don't roll them. You place them on any facing that you so wish. The second option is each of these different Reavers has one of 3 icons on them. This is a leader icon, and it's going to represent something that you can do on your player board, depending upon which icon it is. It's either going to give you food, one of the face-down cards, or 2 favor to be able to use on a future turn. If you have a leader in that spot, you're simply going to discard him to your glory pile and put this one in its place. The final, and probably the best option, is to make this an ability for the rest of the game. Each one of these Reavers has an ability across the bottom. You can, at this time, decide any of these 4 different columns along the bottom of your player board and stick it under there. In fact, you can have some of them stacked, so you have multiple abilities through the course of the game. anytime anybody takes those actions for the rest of the game, even if you don't participate in that spot, you still get the Reaver ability, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's one way you can really change up what you're doing on your player board compared to other players. Some people may do none of that, while other people are just rotating leaders in and out to get those bonuses.
The next thing that happens when that player is done taking that action, each individual player gets to take that action as well. Now, each of these spots is going to be different. Some of them allow you to take pretty much the same action, especially for the Reavers. This player to my left is going to take 2 of the cards, 2 of the cards, 2 of the cards, and the last player can take 1. However, as we talk about some of these other spots, that's going to decline. The first player typically is going to get the boon, or the big, juicy action of that particular spot, and then each player is going to get something a little bit less than the previous player before them. And we'll talk about that right now with the trading.
Yeah, the trading is significant in that respect. This is another one of those spaces that you can go to and not spend anything in order to take these actions. The first person who's going to go there is always going to get the first player marker for the following round. So they're going to take that. Then that person gets to choose to do one of a few different things, and if you're first, you get to choose 3 of these.
Yeah.
You can take a fortune token. We mentioned these earlier. The fortune tokens are going to be used to mitigate your dice and re-roll them. You can get 3 food. You're always going to need food. It's not a bad thing to take. Now here's where it gets interesting. There's dice right along here. The other action is to take any 2 of those dice and place them on your board. Now, these dice have been pre-rolled, so you have to take them as is, but you're able to choose 2 red, 2 blue, a red and a yellow, whatever you want. Place those on your board, and then finally you can take a prosperity card. The prosperity cards are end-of-game scoring based on a massive amount of different things that are going on elsewhere in the game. So you're going to want to be taking these prosperity cards, potentially even switching some out at times in order to have the best end-of-game scoring pile you can possibly have.
And the interesting thing about the trading, it's the first time we talk about the declining ability when you take that action after the first player that takes it. David, if he took that action, would get 3. I would get 2. The player to my left would get 1. Everyone else would get 1 of those many possible actions that you can take. And we're going to see more of that as we explain more of the different locations. There's 2 places on the board where you can raid. You have the raid villages at the bottom, and then you have the raid keeps. The raid villages is the first one.
Yeah, raiding village is going to give you a bunch of different things on a variety of different cards. The cool thing about both of these locations, we'll point it out here, these locations are linked together. So there's going to be columns of 2 cards each. When you take from here, you're going to take all of one column and those cards from that space. Now, we won't go into all the details of what these cards do, but they can do a variety of things. One of which is they can give you ship upgrades. There's these tokens right here on the board. There's 3 different ship upgrades you can get throughout the game. These upgrades are going to serve as basically an extra die face when you need them to do the variety of things that we're going to be doing in the game. You can collect those with certain cards on the board like this one. There are other cards that are going to give you one of 3 different majorities of tokens that you can collect throughout the game. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most is going to get some massive points. There's farm, there's tower, and there's wall tokens that can be collected. And of course, a lot of these cards will give you food. Finally, they give you artifacts. Some of these cards, like Jeremy said at the beginning, will be artifacts that you place out to the side of your player board. These are mostly going to be places where you can use a die to do something. For instance, I could place any one die to change the face of another die. All sorts of different things that you can use. The interesting thing here is a lot of these artifacts are keyed during certain activations. So I might have an artifact that only is used during the Reavers portion of the game. So if that's already been taken, I'm not going to be using that for the rest of the round.
2 other important things about the villages. This is the first spot you're going to notice where it costs a payment. In this one, you have to give up 2 treasure chests and 1 food in order to take that action. So as you go around the table, some of the people may not be able to take that action. If you can't take an action of a spot on the board, you can prepare. When you prepare, you can take any one of the 3 different dice, put it on your player board on any facing that you wish, or you can take 2 food. The other cool thing about this location is the first player that gets to take it gets to take 2 of those cards that are linked together. Then they get to take 1 off the top of the deck randomly. So they're going to get some additional bonuses. They also get to fulfill that card right then.
Yeah.
And this is you're going to see that pattern continue where the person that takes it gets to take some random cards off the top. The next one is the keep. Now the keep works kind of similar to the villages. It costs 3 food and 2 shields this time. However, you're taking cards for sets at the end of the game. There's things like artwork. There's things like silver. There's things like armor. And the more of those that you have at the end of the game, the more points you get from them. All right. Let's talk about conquering territories. This is a very unique spot as well. There's two things you can do when you try to conquer a territory. Again, this is going to cost you something. Each of these tiles is tied into a very specific type of thing, either dice, either food, or either favor. And they all come in different types of values. When you go to this location, you can choose to peacefully subdue them, or you can conquer them with force. And to peacefully subdue them, you simply give up those particular tokens to get to that tile. Two very cool things happen with these tiles. One, when they're flipped over, they're going to give you some kind of immediate bonus, probably dice or favor tokens or food. The other thing is at the end of each of the 6 rounds, you get 1 victory point for every one of those conquered tiles you have. So if you get them early, you're going to get reoccurring points through the course of the game. You can also battle those.
Yeah, battling them, like we said earlier, is going to be something where you might not have those resources to spend, but if you have the correct dice, you can trade those in, get some battle dice, and roll them up against those. As you can see in each of those locations, there's a value 1, 2, and 3 in terms of defense. You just have to meet those in order to beat them and take that token.
The last spot on the board is the sea battle. If you're familiar with Champions of Midgard, this works very similarly. When you go here, you have to give up 4 food. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to flip one of these random journey cards.
Yeah.
The great thing is there's still all is quiet in there. There's things where nothing will happen, but there's sometimes where you may lose a die. You may have to give up food or favor in order to continue your sea battle. Then you're going to pick one of the 5 different cards or one off the top of the deck as always. There's 2 things you can do here too. You can give up dice in order to defeat them. Each of these has a dice combination or a die combination at the top of the cards. If you give up those exact combinations, you are going to collect that card, collect the glory, and any kind of benefit it gives to you. Or again, you can fight them. You can give up some of your battle dice, the ones that have the hammers on them, to get the actual combat dice. You're going to roll those and then try to beat the shield value. If you don't win, you don't win. If you do win, you're going to, again, collect those glory and any of those favor tokens that are on there. And that's it. That's basically the game. You're going to do that for 6 rounds. At the end of each of the rounds, you're going to clear the board of all the cards that weren't taken. All the dice are going to be re-rolled and refilled, and everyone's going to get 1 glory for every single one of the conquest tokens they have. You're going to do that 6 times, and then at the end of the game, you're going to get victory points for a variety of different things. All of your artifacts are going to score, all of your set collections from your raids and the keeps are going to score, all the majorities that you have from your walls, your towers, and your farms are going to score an X number of points. You're going to tally all those up, along with any of the cards that you have down here that give you victory points. Again, for what David said, it was a huge variety of different things that you may be collecting through the course of the game.
Yeah, literally everything that we just went over can be tied back to those cards. It could be tied to the conquest tiles, or these cards, or the keep cards. Anything in the game can be tied to this, so you can really stack up some points.
Very cool game. I love the aspect that you have 1 worker and 1 worker only to do something, and then you're just simply following everyone else. Very quick game, too. It's only 6 rounds. If you guys have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Of course, please go check out their Kickstarter. This is a prototype that you see here. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and everything else that we do. And we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.